What are you left with? Whatever 2 billion people that still survive, where and what? What do you have left? What is the environment like? Like, how polluted is everything? What kind of mutations are going to come from their offspring?
I get into that in the end of the book. So I write the book in essentially 3 acts, like the first 24 minutes, the next 24 minutes, the last 24 minutes, and then nuclear winter. So nuclear winter is very well described by a fellow called Professor Brian Toon, who I interview in the book. He was one of the original 5 authors of, do you remember the nuclear winter theory of our sort of high school years?
Yes.
Right? So that was, Carl Sagan was the lead author on the paper. Toon was the young student. And he's dedicated decades to looking at nuclear winter now. Originally, it was very pawpawed by the Defense Department. It was said, this is Soviet propaganda. This is never going to happen. And the computer systems and climate modeling have changed to the degree where we can see not only is nuclear winter what was thought in the 80s, it's actually much worse. So whereby originally they thought there would be a year of ice sheets across large bodies of water from Iowa to Ukraine, across the mid-latitudes of the globe. Now that could be up to 7 or 10 years. So think about that much frozen land for that long. You have the death of agriculture. You have like you are talking about, you have the complete disruption of the ability for people to grow food and eat food. And so man reverts to his hunter-gatherer state. And this is all...
But hunting and gathering what? That's the real problem.
Well, exactly. And also you have, man has to go underground. I take you through what this is like in detail because it's so bizarre to think about that you have a man-made problem, nuclear weapons, and yet people are not paying attention to the fact that whatever is created by man essentially would theoretically have a man-made solution. Like there is a solution to the nuclear weapons threat. It's not, although the results of a nuclear war would be very much like an asteroid striking the United States or the world anywhere. There's a solution to nuclear war. There's a solution called disarmament. We have a total of 12,200 and some odd nuclear weapons.
And is the concern that if we did that, other countries would not do that? We would be defenseless?
Yeah, absolutely. But, things happen in sort of inches and feet. They don't have to happen overnight. Once upon a time, there were 70,000 nuclear warheads in 1986.
Oh, so we're making progress.
We were making progress until this past year. And these treaties are all, at risk, and people are just very busy seeing everybody else as the enemy.
This past year specifically because of what?
Well, Putin's saying he's not going to be involved in the treaty anymore. Donald Trump said pulled us out of the treaty. So there's leaders are threatening. This is all on the table right now. It could and should be looked at. But do you remember back when we were in high school when Reagan and Gorbachev got together for the Reykjavik summit?
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
That was the beginning of a movement toward disarmament. That was the beginning of this idea of, wait a minute, 70,000 nuclear weapons is just an accident waiting to happen. And so we are at 12,500 today because of that.
And we should also say that there have been some very close calls.
The Secretary General said last year or something, we are one misunderstanding, one miscommunication away from nuclear annihilation. He's not kidding.
There was this one incident where the Soviet Union thought that we were attacking them, and there was one guy who resisted launching a counterstrike, and that one guy prevented nuclear annihilation. One guy said, I think this is an error. This doesn't make sense. I'm not doing this. And that one guy saved us. I don't remember what the incident was. What do you remember?
Yeah.
What was the exact issue?
So his name was Petrov, and it was in 1983. So what's even more remarkable about him is this was at a time of, absolute animosity, enmity between the two nations. It was a really precarious time in the world. And Petrov was in a early warning radar system, like outside of Moscow, that reads data of possible incoming nuclear missiles. And he saw what the radar screen, the radar scope was reading as 5 ICBMs coming from Wyoming. 5. He knew that we would send 1,000 missiles if we were going to launch. And so he questioned the data, which is just so remarkable in its own conception when you think about that. He questioned it, and he didn't send it up the chain of command as a missile attack.
So what was it?
Well, I get into this in the book, which is terrifying. So, okay, let me back up for a second of how good our technology is. So